Hi! Today we'll be working with these two cars to show you how you can save money and time on some basic car maintenance. The battery will look something like this. Quarters of a foot above orientated in line. Another common point of maintenance is changing your oil. You have to do it ever so often to keep your engine running good and clean. If you refer to the owner's manual of this car, specifically this 2005 Honda Accord, needs an oil change every 32,000 kilometers, which means this car is just approaching its oil change, making it perfect to work on right now. Now, you can't just change it every 32,000 kilometers. Since every engine in every car is different, you need to refer to your specific owner's manual to see what the milestone is for your oil change. Once you refer to it, then you know how often you need to change your oil. Now, this book will also tell you what specific oil you need to use. This car in particular, during the summer, needs 5W20 oil to keep it running. Again, for every engine this is different, so make sure to refer to your owner's manual to see what your car needs. In addition to this, it's always a good idea to change your oil filter. If you're changing your oil, and you change your oil filter, it keeps the oil nice and clean. If you keep the old oil filter, while it can still work, it will get your oil dirty quicker. So it's always a good idea to change your oil filter as well. It's a small investment, doesn't cost much, and it will keep your car running much better. To do this job, you need a set of tools to take off the draining bolt at the bottom of the engine. Again, these are a bit of an investment, but if you're going to be working on your own car, it's a great idea to buy these, and they'll help you out not only with your car, but anything else you might want to fix or work on. To lift the car up, you can use the jack that comes with the car, but it isn't such a good idea because those are usually meant for emergencies, like a blown tire on the side of the road. Using a set of ramps, like these, you can roll the car up onto the ramps to give you lots of room under the car to work and change out your oil and your filter. These don't cost much, they're about 40 to 50 Canadian dollars, but they're a very worthwhile investment to work on your car as they make it much easier to roll up, and they're really safe, they're really sturdy, keeps your car up in the air, lets you work on it. Finally, while not necessary, one of these tools will make the job much easier, as you can use it to take off an oil filter that might be stuck due to heat or being left on for too long. While if you do your maintenance regularly, you can usually take off the oil filter with just your hand. This tool will make it much easier to break off old oil filters that have been stuck on for too long. To use these ramps, all you need to do is slide them under in front of the wheel of your parked car. Line them up so they're straight with the wheel, as I did on that side already, so you can just roll up onto them and it will lift the car up. Get a couple boards or wheel chokes to slide under the back wheels so the car doesn't roll back off the ramps. It's an added safety measure and it really makes the job a lot safer. Once you're up on the ramps, put the car in park and pull up the emergency brake. This will keep the back wheels from spinning and will keep the car up on the ramps. As an extra added safety measure, I like to take a spare tire and slide it under the body of the car where it won't get in your way, but it will protect you just in case. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Once the car is up in the air and you're ready to work on it, slide a piece of cardboard under where you're going to work. It not only prevents oil from spilling on the ground, but also gives you a nice work area to lay down on instead of laying down on the dirty asphalt. Once you're under the car, go to where under the engine is and locate the oil pan. It should be pretty obvious to see. It's a low point in the car, and you should find a bolt on it. It'll usually be really close to the bottom of the oil pan so you can drain it as easily as possible. Some cars even have an indicator that says oil on it. Once you've found this drain plug, determine the size of the bolt so you can take it off. Once you determine the right size of the bolt, put it on, make sure it's nice and snug, and get ready to turn it. Have a bucket of some sort that you can drain the oil into instead of having it spill all over the ground. Be sure to position it a little bit out of the way, not directly under, because since there's a lot of oil, there's pressure and it'll shoot out a bit at an angle, such as I've positioned here. So, put some pressure in, there you go, I have it loose now. Be very careful not to drop this, as if you drop it, you're going to have a really bad time taking it out. Once it's loose, you can take the wrench off and do the rest with your hands. Take the socket off, and there you go. Keep a nice tight grip on this bolt so you don't drop it into the bucket. Go nice and slow, and at a certain point, you'll see it starting to drain. There it goes. Make sure to have a second bucket on hand in case this one isn't enough to hold the oil. Once the stream starts to slow down, you know that there's a little bit of oil left. Since the oil cap at the top is closed, there might still be a little vacuum in the engine. To deal with this, open the cap and it should free up a little more flow. Once the oil level slows down to just a trickle, you can take the bolt and close the hole back up. It's okay if you get a little oil on your hands. You're not going to be able to get this job without getting a little messy. So, make the bolt as snug as you can with your hands. Get your wrench and tighten it down nice and snug. You should put quite a bit of pressure on it. Since the engine does vibrate when you're driving, you don't want it to get loose. So tighten it down until it's really tight. You don't have to over tighten it, but just make sure it's pretty tight, it's nice and snug. Now, it's okay if there's a little oil dripping off, that's fine, it'll go away. Now, after you've drained the oil, you need to take off the oil filter as well. It might take a little bit of searching, but it'll usually look like a cylinder, such as this one. Might be a bit higher up on the engine block, same idea. Have a secondary bucket positioned under where the filter is, in case it does leak out, because there might still be a little bit of oil trapped inside. So, get your tool snug on here. Once you get it rotating, it should come loose. Once it comes a little loose, it'll be a lot easier to do with your hand. To get it loose enough, don't take it off all the way before you position a bucket underneath in case it starts pouring, which it more often than not does. There it goes. Be sure not to get any of this oil in your eyes because it will sting. Now it does take quite a while to unscrew because there is a peg inside that holds onto it, which feeds the oil into it. Be really careful and don't get careless enough to drop it. Once you feel it getting near the end of the oil, take it off and make sure to keep the open end upwards so you don't drain the oil out of it. Lower it down. You can set it over to the side. Leave the bucket under to let the excess oil drain into it. So, before you put on the new filter, ensure that it looks the same as the old one, so you're not putting in the wrong filter. Put it away. Now, the special trick is that there's an O-ring here that keeps any of the oil from leaking out when the car's engine is running. Get some of the spare oil that's dripping down on your finger and rub it along the O-ring. Once you get the O-ring nice and lubed up with oil, it will maintain contact better and it won't leak nearly as much. Right, now once you get that, slide the oil filter back up into there. Shimmy it back onto the peg that it sits on, and you can screw it on just like you unscrewed the old one. First you have to get it as tight as you can with your hands. And while it isn't a moving part, it is a good idea to keep it nice and tight because there is a bit of oil pressure buildup if the car engine is running. You don't want it to come off and for the oil to start leaking. So it's a good idea to grab your tool that you used previously to take off the old filter, put it on the other way. Usually these tools will have the thing to help you grasp onto it whichever way you're turning. And once you secure the tool on the filter, rotate it clockwise this time to tighten it down some more. And that's all you need to do underneath the car to change the oil. You just have to screw on the new oil filter and make sure this bolt is nice and tight. As long as you make sure these two things are snug, you'll be okay. Once you've got the car off the ramps and on a flat surface, you can make sure you have the right level of oil. To do this, take out your dipstick. If you had a clean piece of paper towel, just wipe it off. Wipe all the oil off, and this will reset the dipstick. It will let you get a correct reading on the amount of oil in the engine, because when you drive around or you're at an angle, the oil splashes around, it might get a different reading than from what the oil actually is. The dipstick back in, get it nice and stuck in there, then get it back out, and you should see the oil reading on the end of the dipstick. As you can see, the oil readout reads between the two pegs on the oil dipstick. This means that the oil level is good. It's a little closer to the top one, which means we have quite a bit of oil in here, but oil does burn up over time, so it's better to have too much than too little. As the oil burns up in the engine over time, it becomes more dirty, which is indicated by the oil color change. As the oil becomes more dirty, it loses its lubricative properties, which is why you need to change the oil at regular intervals, because if you leave it for too long, it won't lubricate nearly as much as oil should, and that can cause damage to the engine. Now that you've filled your engine with oil, you need to dispose of the old oil. There's a special way of doing this. You can't just pour it down the drain. You have the empty container from your new oil that you just poured into your engine, and you have your container with your old oil. Use the funnel that you used to pour the oil into the engine to pour the old oil into the container from the new oil. Once you've emptied the oil out into this container, be sure to take it to a place where you can properly dispose of it. This can be any kind of auto store that will usually do disposals for you, or any auto service center. They'll do disposals for you too. If you're not sure, you can find these oil disposal centers online near you. And they usually do this job for free. They'll take away your oil instead of you having to pour it down the drain.